Good Monday. It is May 20th, 2019, and this is your Tech Moment. Baltimore ransomware nightmare could last weeks more with big consequences. This comes to us from Sean Gallagher at Ars Technica. Days after Mayor Jack Young took over for disgraced Baltimore Mayor Catherine Pugh, ransomware took down Baltimore City's networks. It may be weeks or months before things return to normal, and normal wasn't that great either, based on the city's IT track record. It's been nearly 2 weeks since the city of Baltimore's networks were shut down in response to a ransomware attack, and there's still no end in sight to the attack's impact. It may be weeks more before the city's services return to something resembling normal. Manual workarounds are being put in place to handle some services now, but the city's water billing and other payment systems remain offline, as well as most of the city's email and much of the government's phone systems. The ransomware attack came in the midst of a major transition at City Hall. Mayor Bernard C. Jack Young assumed office officially just days before the attack after the resignation of former Mayor Catherine Pugh, who's facing an ever-expanding corruption investigation, and some of the mayor's critical staff positions remain unfilled. The mayor's deputy chief of staff for operations, Cheryl Goldstein, starts work today. To top it off, unlike the city of Atlanta, which suffered from a SamSam ransomware attack in March of 2018, Baltimore has no insurance to cover the cost of a cyber attack, so the cost of cleaning up the Robinhood ransomware will far exceed the approximate $70,000 the ransomware operators demanded, and it'll be borne entirely by Baltimore's citizens. Again, you can read more about this at Ars Technica. The links are on the blog or attached to this recording below. U.S. is to back international guidelines for AI and ethics. This is coming to us from Engadget. American companies have fostered ethical uses of artificial intelligence before. Now, however, the government itself is poised to weigh in. Politico understands that the U.S., fellow members of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, and a handful of other countries will adopt a set of non-binding guidelines for creating and using AI. The principles would require that AI respects human rights, democratic values, and the law. It should also be safe, open, and obvious to users, while those who make and use AI should be held responsible for their actions and offer transparency. The guidelines also call on governments to boost AI funding and establish frameworks that help turn research into real-world applications. There could be deregulated environments to test AI before unleashing it into the wild, as an example. My take on this: it should be like your pet dog. It should stay in the backyard, and if it gets out and does damage, the owner is responsible for its behavior. Getting worse, part 1. Intuit routinely lies to customers to avoid paying refunds for tax prep work. This comes to us from Tech Republic's blogs. It appears Intuit has decided to make things worse rather than better. Just after tax season, we discussed ProPublica's excellent research article on the extreme lengths Intuit had gone to keep its FreeFile service and unknown to the public. This service is the result of an agreement the top tax prep companies out there reached with the IRS, essentially by promising to allow members of the public that earn under a certain amount of money to use their services to file taxes for free. The IRS, in turn, has agreed not to pursue its own free-to-file service. It's an extremely dumb idea for any number of reasons, one of which being how much more efficient it would be for the IRS to carry the weight here, given that it already has all the information most taxpayers need to file. The other reason, it turns out, is because Intuit has decided to behave pretty much as cynically as it possibly can. As we detailed in our previous post, the company engaged in a strategy coupling the buying of ads for Google searches and hiding the free-to-file via the robot.txt file on their website. As a result, something like 3% of eligible taxpayers file for free using the system, while Intuit set up a layer of websites and landing pages, all designed to direct the public to paid services without ever telling them they're qualified for free-to-file tax prep. As a result of the ProPublica post, many who paid for these services called up Intuit and asked for refunds. If you thought that this public light on shady behavior would lead to an adjustment of attitude at Intuit, you're sadly mistaken. More on this at the link. Microsoft releases first test version of its Edge browser for Mac. Last month, Microsoft released a preview of its new Chromium-powered Edge browser for Windows 10. Now you can test drive the browser with Mac OS too. For the most part, the Mac OS Canary build comes with the same features you'll find in the Windows 10 preview, but Microsoft promises subtle changes to make it feel at home on a Mac. The Mac OS preview includes modifications to fonts, menus, and keyboard shortcuts that Mac users will find familiar. It also adds controls like website shortcuts and tab switching through the touch bar, and it works with familiar Mac trackpad gestures. Microsoft says it will continue to perfect the browser as it evolves in future releases. And in a blog post, the company says it welcomes feedback. Need a dragon fix after Game of Thrones finale? Head to Elder Scrolls Online's Elsewhere expansion. This comes to us from PC World's Leif Johnson. ZeniMax Online either has an impeccable sense of timing or it's so lucky that all its employees should go buy lottery tickets this second. Smoke and memes have barely cleared in the aftermath of last night's series finale of Game of Thrones, and yet mere hours later, ZeniMax is kicking open the gates of early access for Elder Scrolls Online Elsewhere expansion ahead of its official release next Monday. Only for PC and Mac users, though. If you're on a console, you'll have to wait until next week. Elsewhere is a perfect chaser for HBO's tale of politics and fantastic beasts. You'll see dragons, for one, and lots of them. You'll find family members with decidedly different opinions about the invasion of a city, and you'll even find an army of the undead worked into the mix. And if that all sounds a little too familiar, get this. Elsewhere's also got a bunch of cat people, and we all know how much the internet loves cats. Xbox chief outlines plan to curb toxic behavior. This is coming to us from Engadget. Xbox head Phil Spector has laid out some measures to combat some of the more negative aspects that pervade gaming communities, such as toxicity and abuse. He wrote in a blog post that gaming is for everyone, and people everywhere from all backgrounds and all walks of life are welcome to play and welcome to all the fun and skill building that comes with gaming. As such, Spencer wrote, "Gaming must promote and protect the safety of all. It's essential that we embrace our role and take responsibility for creating safe gaming. Building and protecting a healthy community is shared essential work," he said, and he outlined a number of commitments to help towards that goal. Microsoft and the Xbox team will be vigilant, proactive, and swift with regards to potential abuse and misuse on the Xbox platform, and will act to fix problems swiftly. They've updated the Xbox community standards to lay out how everyone should play a role in keeping gaming a safe environment and detail the repercussions for those who don't abide by the standards. The revamped standards spell out the differences between trash talk and harassment. For instance, we are intent on expanding the composition of our safety team so that wide-ranging perspectives can help us identify future safety problems and solutions, Spencer wrote. A disillusioned Aaron Paul longs for someone real in Westworld 3 trailer, Season 3 trailer. Fresh on the heels of last night's finale on Game of Thrones, HBO took advantage of the record number of viewers tuning in to release the first teaser for Season 3 of Westworld. The teaser is deliberately vague on details, but it looks like we're in for a dystopian near-future scenario set not in the original theme park, but in the real outside world. If you're new to the series, the titular Westworld is one of 6 immersive theme parks owned and operated by a company called Delos, Inc. It's essentially live-action role-play combined with a choose-your-own-adventure experience. The park is populated with a cast of very human-looking androids called hosts who follow a bunch of intertwining narratives, rebooting the same narrative every day. The Park's well-heeled visitors can pretty much do whatever they like to the hosts, rape, pillage, torture, murder, and they do so more often than not because they don't see the hosts as anything more than unfeeling props in their private dramas. There's more at the links below. Back to Tech Republic's story, Getting Worse, Part 2. Intuit CEO informs employees that FreeFile was hidden for the public's own good. Like we said, Intuit apparently wants to keep digging this hole for itself after our initial coverage of ProPublica's excellent posts on how Intuit was going to crazy lengths to keep anyone from finding its FreeFile tax prep site. We followed up with reports of how many Intuit reps were lying to keep from giving people refunds. Those lies included claims that Intuit and TurboTax don't even run the FreeFile program and that it was instead operated by the IRS itself with TurboTax branding. Another lie was that ProPublica's reporting was all wrong and that the news organizations were about to run a retraction. Spoiler alert, no they are not. But it seems that the Intuit brass aren't content only to lie to the public. Intuit's CEO managed to cobble together an internal video, which of course leaked, so that he could lie to his own staff as well. Inside the quotes here is Sasan Goadarzi, the CEO of Intuit, says the company's efforts to make its free tax filing software harder to find on Google were part of the software giant's commitment to educating taxpayers. In an 11-minute video sent to Intuit employees, Goadarzi said the company was trying to help consumers by steering them to educational content instead of TurboTax's free filing website. Responding to our reporting, which shows that Intuit, H&R Block, and other for-profit tax software companies were steering low-income customers to their paid products, Goadarzi said the company's marketing practices had been misinterpreted to signal that we were trying to hide the product we offer in the IRS program. That is inaccurate. Again, more in the links. And finally today, Intel, Qualcomm, and other chip makers cut off supplies to Huawei. Huawei has more to worry about beyond Google's decision to suspend Android support. Bloomberg sources said that American chip makers, Intel, Qualcomm, Broadcom, and Xilinx, had told staff they wouldn't supply Huawei with parts till further notice, leaving the Chinese tech giant without potentially vital components. Nikkei tipsters also claimed that Germany's Infineon had cut off certain shipments to Huawei out of caution, although a spokesperson since said that most of its products wouldn't be subject to the U.S. blacklisting that had prompted companies to back away. The effective trade ban could seriously damage Huawei's ability to do business. The company depends on Intel chips for its servers, as well as PCs like the MacBook X Pro. Broadcom and Xilinx supply chips for its networking business, and while Huawei makes its own processors for many of its phones, it may still need Qualcomm for some chips. Chip companies so far have declined to comment. Huawei has reportedly been preparing for a possibility like this by stockpiling components and designing its own chips. It's betting that an end to the U.S.-China trade war will come soon enough to avert catastrophe. However, it might only have enough supply for a few months. If the trade war doesn't end soon or doesn't lead to a thaw in U.S. relations, Huawei may be forced to either find alternatives or lose important parts of its business. China won't like that. Huawei is one of the country's shining beacons, and a decline on its part could have far-reaching implications for the Chinese economy. Join us next time for another Your Tech Moment.